Welcome back. You are watching Global Eye. We're looking at fresh tensions between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Relations between the Pakistani government and the army on one hand and Afghan Taliban have been under strain for the past few years. Early Monday morning, the Pakistani forces carried out airstrikes on hideouts of Tehrik-e-Taliban or Pakistan Taliban on Afghan territory. The attack left 5 women and 3 children dead. Responding to Pakistani strikes, the Afghan forces fired at Pakistani troops along the border. Pakistan faced another terror attack this week, this one at the strategically important Gwadar port, a part of the China-Pakistan economic corridor. Baloch militants attacked the port and 2 soldiers and 8 militants were killed. China has reacted sharply and said it supports Pakistan in its fight against terrorism. What do these terror attacks mean for the new coalition government under Shehbaz Sharif, which is barely a month old? Joining me now is Anju Gupta, security analyst and former DGP with the UP Police, somebody who looks at Pakistan-Afghanistan matters very closely and terrorism in general. Ms. Gupta, thank you very much for joining us on Global Eye. Give us a sense as to why the Pakistani government, which is barely a month old, decided to carry out these airstrikes on Afghan soil.
Thank you, Parikshit, for having me on the show. We have seen Pakistan mounting airstrikes into Afghan territory on a number of occasions. And this typically happens when there's a when the casualty is really big on the Pakistani side. They blame Afghan Taliban for sheltering the TTP and they claim that the TTP shelters are there in the AFPAC region on the Afghanistan side. So this time around, the immediate provocation was killing of a colonel and a captain level officers along with other soldiers in an attack on North Waziristan a few days ago. And as we know in Pakistan, the loss of life of senior officers within the army creates a big flutter. So the immediate provocation was this, for carrying out airstrikes into Afghanistan and to demonstrate that they were taking action against TTP network, who are really not under control of Pakistani army at the moment.
Right. In a way, they were forced. The Pakistani forces were, in a way, pushed into reacting because their credibility was at stake. I'd also like to ask you about the consequences of deteriorating relations between the Pakistani forces and the government on one hand and the Afghan Taliban on the other. They have often been referred to as cousins in the past. But if things go on in this manner, what are some of the immediate consequences that you see resulting from this attack?
So I think I'll just restate a few things that people know about Pakistan. One, that the current government particularly is a very weak government. Second, it is the Pakistani army that controls the security and the foreign policy in Pakistan, apart from many other things. And that is why it is important to understand that who is acting against whom. It's the Pakistani army that has been taking action with regard to these attacks. So the other thing is that the relations between the Taliban rulers, I would call them, because we can't call them government, they are not formally recognized. The relationship between Taliban rulers and Pakistani army or the Pakistani state has been on the decline since the US withdrawal of troops. I think the one country that has really faced the brunt after the withdrawal of US troops from Afghanistan is Pakistan. They have the TTP and the Baloch groups have upped the ante against, and their attack targets are Pakistani forces. They are not hitting the civilians. They are hitting the Pakistani army and the forces, their installations, their bases, the troops, and the casualty figure is really very high. So, and as a result of these, the rise of violence in Pakistan, there's been a sharp deterioration between the relationship between Taliban and the Pakistani government and the Pak ISI, which was all these years supporting Taliban against the foreign troops and the Afghan troops. And we have seen how strongly Taliban has reacted to these airstrikes and all that they have said and all that they have been saying. And on top of that, Pakistan government, again driven by Pakistani army, has also gone in for something which is really very questionable, of forcibly repatriating millions of Afghans who've been, living in Pakistan for years. And they have done it through the winter months, and now they have again announced that they're going to do for the rest of them. So the tension has been mounting on between both the sides since August 2021, since the US withdrawal, and we see that is going to go up.
Right. Ms. Gupta, do you also feel, and very briefly, if you could tell us, is Pakistan now, day by day, losing more leverage over Afghanistan?
Yes, absolutely. And if you look at the history of Afghanistan and Pakistan, till the Taliban came into power, whichever way, Pakistan always had a seat at the high table, so to say, because the world was going to talk to Taliban through Pakistan, and especially Pakistani army. And that is, they had a great leverage, so the world thought, and they did have. It's a matter of a separate discussion as to what went wrong between Taliban and Pakistani army. But they had the huge leverage. The Taliban had sanctuaries in Pakistan, Fata area, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They had their families living on this side, and they were getting all of the support. So, but now the situation has turned around almost 180 degrees. It is becoming very difficult for Pakistan to take care of its own security, and they are repeatedly blaming Taliban for sheltering the hostile elements.
Just to also shift focus to the attack that we saw on Gwadar port by Baloch militants. There were at least 2 Pakistani soldiers who were killed, 8 Baloch militants who were killed in that attack that took place. What is the significance of this? Now, this is very important for the China-Pakistan economic corridor. We've seen a sharp reaction from China. What could be the consequences of this going forward?
Well, the Baloch insurgency has been building up for more than 2 years. And we see Baloch groups becoming much more vicious, much more focused, and their targets are military installations. And together, these groups have mounted more than 600 attacks against the army and paramilitary in 2023, causing a very high casualties. And so, attack on Gwadar is in the series of the high-profile attacks that the Baloch groups have mounted against the Pakistani army. And they claim that this attack was on the ISI and the military intelligence, and that they killed about 25 soldiers in this particular attack, although the Pakistani side denies it. But the fact is that Pakistani forces had to battle for 2 long hours to actually get the complex vacated. And they were all suicide bombers who attacked the complex. The significance of Gwadar, and I would say of CPEC, is for China-Pakistan relationship. As we know that CPEC is very important, or in fact one of the first initiatives under the Belt and Road Initiative of President of China. And especially the CPEC is said to be his own vision. But we know that CPEC traverses through Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan, 2 provinces which are highly disturbed on account of bad security. And Gwadar is the end port of the CPEC. And the Baloch groups in particular have made they have not hidden the fact that they do not support this kind of a development in which they are deprived of their economic, development, and as well as of the political freedom. So we've seen this Baloch insurgency picking up momentum, especially from late last year. And it is, as a result of this, we are seeing an absolutely vicious and a big round of violent attacks on Pakistani army and installations across Balochistan. So Gwadar was one of them. It has significance, big significance for CPEC and all that the China wants to do in Gwadar.
Right. I'd also like to ask you, ma'am, what are the consequences of what's happened at Gwadar? What's happening at the Af-Pak border for the entire region as of now?
If we look at what has been happening for the last couple of months, particularly last couple of months, the region is very tense. We've seen how Iran mounted airstrikes into Balochistan area against what they call the sanctuaries of Jaish-e-Dal, which they claim that Pakistan is, supporting. We've seen one counter airstrikes by Pakistan into Iran, Now we've seen continuous tension between Afghanistan and Pakistan. We've seen, the tension between Iran and building up with other actors across West Asia. So the entire region is really very tense. And there are new state and non-state actors who have kind of come up in this entire region. This does not augur well for the region. Why? Because one, when people can't fight the symmetric battle, they fight asymmetric battles. This is something one has to be really mindful of, and I'm saying it as an expert on this. And second is that the new alliances may take place. So enemy and enemy come together, and then they kind of attack somebody else. Third, that it is going to really affect it may lead to the creation of infrastructure of violence in a particular area does not augur well for the entire region. Why? Because it kind of inspires others. It can be used to train the cadres. Mercenary recruitment may take place. So in the long run, this kind of a build-up of terror infrastructure or infrastructure for violence in Pakistan or anywhere is really not good for the region or for the entire world. And we've seen how, how Al-Qaeda became big. We've seen how Daesh became big. We've seen how other groups became big, LTT for that matter. So, yeah.
Right. So you're saying that this has negative consequences for the region, and this is something that all nations, including India, must watch out for very carefully. Thank you very much, Ms. Gupta, for joining us on the program, giving us your view on the security challenges that the new government in Pakistan has to face right now. And of course, Pakistan is in a deteriorating economic situation, and the security situation is no better. Nothing to speak of at this juncture. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Eye. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC TV 18 for more news and updates.